Okay. Again, thank you all for joining me today. We're going to be taking a look at the GW Drupal overview theme today. I'm sorry, the GW Drupal editorial theme today, which is the quote-unquote new theme. It did launch back in 2016, so while it is the newer of our theme, it's actually been around for a few years at this point. I am recording today's session, so feel free to take your notes, but you will be able to refer back to the video to see the things that we discussed today. And I will be sharing the link to this video in the follow-up resources that I send within the next handful of days. If you have any questions during the course of today's session, feel free to put those into the WebEx chat. You can either send a message privately to me in the chat. You can also feel free to share it with everybody. And then additionally, joining us today is my colleague, Annette Thompson. She's also available if you would like to send her privately any questions that you may have about anything that we're going over today or any questions that come up for you that maybe I don't cover today. Feel free to, again, use those resources to chat. And then at the very end, we'll also open up the microphones if you just wanted to go ahead and ask your question directly over the line. Feel free to do that again towards the end of the presentation. So you can, again, chat either myself or Annette Thompson during the course of the session or towards the end of the session when we have the Q&A. Feel free to take yourself off of mute at that point and ask any questions that may come up for you during the session. All right. So today's agenda, we're going to cover obviously what Drupal is, and then we'll talk about the content types, web accessibility, what that is and why it's important, and how you can make sure that your website is accessible for your users. We'll take a quick peek at user accounts and the Workbench Dashboard in the back end of Drupal, and then I'll actually go ahead and log into a website and make some general edits on a page so that you can kind of see how the system works from a back end site administrator standpoint. So what is GW Drupal? Drupal is a core package of code. It contains the bare bone basic structure and functionality of a content management system, CMS for short. And what that means is that somebody who does not have any web development or web design skills should be able to log into the back of a CMS, Drupal, enter in their text and their images, and then generate a web page based off of that core package of code. Drupal as a CMS can be downloaded for free off of the internet, and then it needs to be customized to suit the specific needs of a website owner. So you can see over here in the right-hand side a screenshot of what Drupal out of the box looks like. It has no styles or brandings or any kind of advanced functionality to it. To get those sorts of elements and that sort of visual aesthetic, you need to have somebody who does have web design and development skills to then be able to apply those features and that look to your website for you. So that brings us into what is GW Drupal. GW Drupal is the university's branded and customized version of a Drupal installation. The service as a whole launched back in 2012, and at that point and still to this day, it is the official platform for academic and administrative websites at the university. We do have other services at this point, mainly speaking of GW blogs, that can be used to some capacity, but in general, new website projects still go into GW blogs for academic and administrative websites. It is an enterprise service at the university. So what that means is everybody who's using it shares the same code, the same styles, features, and functionality. And that's so that we can deploy these websites quickly without having to spend a long time doing individual customized website projects. And this, having it as an enterprise service, we can turn a website on literally within a day's notice and then work with the site owner to get their content into the website, and over the course of a handful of weeks, potentially months, building graphics and video and things along those lines to put into the website. But all of the same styles, features, and functionality at the template level are shared across all users of GW Drupal. And the design specifically complies with the university's identity standards and guidelines, so it's using the appropriate fonts and colors. It's also been vetted to be sure that it's web accessible, and if we find something that's not, we have the ability to quickly deploy an update that will be deployed across everybody's website, again, because it is an enterprise service. And then the features that were built into the platform were built to cover the needs of a broad swath of users. So everybody from a two-person center or institute all the way up to a school or a college that might actually have a whole team, a communications or technology team who can manage the website. We needed to make sure that the service would work for any user regardless of their technical skill level or the number of people that they actually have available to manage the website. Any questions so far? Okay. So how you manage your GW Drupal website is using content types. These are basically building blocks or content templates that are designed to present the information that you have in a structured way. So for instance, the various page types, there's a different content type for each one, and there are also different content types for the different types of supporting elements that you might want to have on your website. You always want to make sure you're using the appropriate content type for the information that you're trying to put out, because there's often additional functionality tied to a given content type to allow for certain things to happen elsewhere on your website. So for instance, if you have an event that you're trying to promote, you want to make sure that you're using the event page content type, because if you then want on your home page or any other number of pages to have an event feed, Drupal is looking for that event page content type to be able to actually display anything in that feed. If you're not using the event page content type, it's not going to know what to put there, so it's not going to display anything. So again, when you are picking the content type to create your content, you want to make sure that you're picking the appropriate one, not just for the page that your website visitor might land on, but for any additional functionality that you might want to extend throughout your website, that you're using the appropriate content types to support that as well. So speaking more about content types, there are 3 categories, the first one being detail pages, and these are your standalone pages. This is when somebody clicks on a link and they get to a web page and they can see the details of whatever topic is that web page is about. The next category is inherited content, and what this means is elements that really only exist in one single instance, like there's only one item in the back end of your website, but it might show up across your entire website based off of its what's called a site placement value, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So these elements typically display globally throughout your site, but it's also possible in some instances to have them display just on a specific set of pages based off of their site placement value, because they're being inherited based off of that site placement value. And then the last category is your specialized content. And these are those supportive elements that you might add to like the sidebars of your pages, maybe some rotators, things along those lines, that are just kind of amplifying the information that you have on that page and helping to provide additional context or additional resources, things along those lines. They're supporting the details on the page. So your details pages specifically are your general content page, and these can be with or without sidebars in the editorial theme. The article page, which are any of those news type pages that you might have. Your event page, which I spoke about previously, is pretty self-explanatory. It's an event that's happening on a specific day and at a specific time, that sort of thing. The person page, which is your biography page. The testimonial page, which allows you to provide a first-person account, sort of like a very long-form quote. And then the Webform page, which is a fillable form that you can put up on your web page. So taking a look at some of these detail pages in more detail. The first one is the general content without sidebars. This works really well as a basic page template, and it particularly works well as a landing page when it doesn't have those sidebars, and you can see an example here from the Academic Technologies website. Your text and your images will expand across the full content width of your page. So that's approximately 1,100 pixels wide. There will not be any sidebar content, including sub-navigation. So even if this page has sub-pages to it, there's not going to be a way for the users to get to that from a sidebar navigation standpoint. The links will have to be represented somewhere on the page instead. Next, additionally, you can look at using supportive content on the page, and you need to plan for that supporting content to be put on in a vertical format. So one item above or below the next. You're not going to be able to put it again in the sidebars because there literally is no place for them to go as far as sidebars go. So you're going to need to think about that when you're designing how the content on your page is going to look. And then if present, the main image on your page will be right aligned, and your text for your body text for your page will actually wrap around it. In this theme, and it's not necessary to have that main image there, and it's also, there's a lot of things that you can do within the body text of your page. Like you can see on this page, so it doesn't really look like there's a whole lot of body text going on because they've designed this page to be a landing page. So it's really about giving people a quick overview about what is available on this page as far as it being the Blackboard Learning Management System, and then giving people links over to more detail about the various things you can do with Blackboard, support for Blackboard, things along those lines. So they thought long and hard about how they wanted this landing page to work for their users, and then they made sure that the text and the images that they created on this page really worked towards that effort. So again, general content page without sidebars, they work really well as landing pages. Everything will be stacked vertically. So from the hero banner, page title, and all of your body text and supportive elements, they will be stacked vertically as on one on top of the other. You will not be able to utilize your sidebars to have any of that supportive content in there. So if you do want a page with sidebars, then you're going to want a general content with sidebar page with sidebars page template, and you can see that here on the Disability Support Services site. It's a pretty basic page again. In this case, because there is sub-navigation, it does show up in that left sidebar, and you could have additional supporting elements underneath that sub-navigation if you would like to. And then you also have the ability to put items into your right sidebar. So here we can see just a simple promotion here to register with DSS. But again, if they wanted to have additional supporting items there, they could also have those in the sidebar. But other than that, they just have their page title and their body text going. If they did have a main image here, it would have been between the page title and the beginning of the body text, and it would span across the entire width of their content area here. Other than that, it's basically the same as what you see on the page without sidebars as far as what you can put on it. And you can see here in this screenshot example from the GW Laws Writing Center page that if there's no content going into the right sidebar, like if you haven't designed anything to go there and elected to put anything there, then your text will actually just expand into that empty space. You won't just have this awkward white column of emptiness over here. Everything will expand to fill up that space. Any questions on this? Okay, so next we're going to take a look at the article page. It's pretty similar to what your general content pages look like and how they work, with the exception of the fact that there is a publication date, which you might be able to see down here beneath the image and its caption. That publication date is what sets this page apart dynamically from the other page content types. It allows you to create an article feed anywhere throughout your site based off of that publication date. So if you wanted a feed of news articles on your homepage or some other subpage deeper in your site, you can do that because you've used the article page content type, and then Drupal is going to look to see what that publication date is, and it's going to generate that feed for you chronologically based off of that date. The article page content type does support sidebars. There's only one in this case over on the right-hand side. If there was additional sidebar items, they would show up over here. All of this information would scale down to then fit into the middle column. But since there's nothing over here, it expanded over to the left side to fill in that empty space. But you do have the ability to have sidebars on both the left and the right side of your page. And just like the general content with sidebar page, if there's a main image, it's going to be between your title, and in this case subtitle of the page, and then the additional information that maybe is present in, as far as the publication date and the body text goes, that will all then go underneath that main image. Any questions on the article page? All right. So the next one we're going to take a look at is the event page. And again, this one's pretty self-explanatory. If there's something going on a specific day and at a specific time that you need people to either attend or log in for, you're going to want to use your event page. Just like with the article page, one of the key drivers of your event page is the date, so that event date. that is what's going to allow you to have an event feed on your website if you would like to have one. Again, anywhere on your website. It doesn't just have to be your home page. It can also be on a page deeper in your site. But what Drupal is looking for is the fact that there's an event page, and then second to that, it's going to look to see what is the event date and the event time so that it knows chronologically where to put that event in the feed that you want to generate. So the event page also will display sidebar navigation if it's present. However, if there is no sidebar navigation, that left sidebar is not designed to hold any supportive elements, and neither is the right one. The only thing that this page is really supposed to do is to give people the information about your event and then to get them to take whatever action is necessary for that event, whether it be to RSVP or some other action that you want them to take. But we don't have supporting elements supported in the template of this page because we don't want to distract them into doing something else and getting off of this page and forgetting to come back or something along those lines. So the only time you're going to see sidebars on the event page, again, is if there is sub-navigation, and that will show up on the left-hand side. And then as you enter in the logistics of your event in the back end of Drupal, the when, the where, who to contact, things along those lines, this sidebar over on the right-hand side will get pre-populated for you. Well, will get populated for you into this format. And then this is the only thing that will display in this right sidebar. Other than that, you have the standard fields for your title, a main image if you would like, and then your body text to get into the details of your event. Next, we will take a quick look at the person page. Again, this is your biography page, and we can see an example here of one on the Department of English's website. The biography page allows you to have the person's name and title up at the very top, and then next to that you'll get sort of like the directory view of information about them depending on the fields that you complete in the back end. So for the English department, they've provided, the person's title, their office location, phone number, and email address. And then they stop there, but there are additional fields in the back end if you would like to use them. The headshot will always be left aligned to that directory information. And then on the back end in Drupal, there are a handful of text editors that you can fill in. I think only the first one is required. I could be wrong about that. I think actually it might be optional at this point. But the point is you can just fill in one and just have a simple biography about the person, or you can fill in multiple text editors and have a nice, robust profile going for that person. It's entirely up to you. But you can see here it just allows you to have either a pretty scaled down directory or, again, a very robust directory of people in your page or people in your website based off of the amount of information that you choose to provide about that person. And then what's dynamic about the person page is that if you would then like to have a directory page listing on your website, Drupal can look to see what person pages you have created, and it will then create that directory for you based off of site placement tagging. And the directory will be alphabetized by last name, so keep that in mind. For instance, this person would show up as Paige, Lisa, and then because they also put professor in her name, I believe that will also show up. I'd have to double check that, but that's just something you want to keep in mind if you're going to put, things like academic degrees in the person's name and any suffixes and things along those lines. If you're going to type those things into that person's name, that is also going to show up in the directory if you choose to generate one. Any questions so far? All right, then let's keep going. So the next page is the testimonial page. And again, this allows you to create like a first-person account from somebody, either a story for them or a long-form quote. You can see here in the screenshot that what you get is the person's name, a pull quote that will display over to the left here in nice large font, along with that person's name again in a smaller font, and whatever affiliation that you want to indicate that they have to the university or to your organization. You then have the ability to have an image, a main image over here to the right. It just so happens to be a headshot here, but it doesn't have to be a headshot. It can be anything that you think is appropriate. And then the body text actually then goes into this unique 3-column format. You only see this here on the testimonial page content type. And again, it's really the chance to give that first-person account from somebody. And everything that you see displayed here, by the way, from the title, this short pull quote, the main image, the affiliation information, and the body text. These are all required fields in the back end of Drupal. So you wouldn't be able to come and say, okay, well, I want to get this sort of format, but I don't have a quote and I don't have an image. I just want this 3 columns of text. You have to have all of the elements that you see here on the page because it really is designed to be a testimonial, long-form testimonial page that you're presenting to your website visitors. The dynamic thing about the testimonial content or the testimonial content type is that you can group a total of 4 testimonials together into what's called a testimonial content set and put that onto your web page. And that content set will give a shorter teaser view of the person's quote, and then your website visitor can click on it and then get to this detail page to see the detailed information about the testimonial that they're given. But again, it does require use of this testimonial page content type in order for that content set to work. And then the final page content type that we're going to take a look at is the Webform Page. And I do think this one also speaks for itself, but this again does allow you to create a form on your website that your users can fill out directly on the page. They can click the submit button, and then Drupal will log the submission in the back end of your Drupal website. But you can also, if you would like to, set up email rules so that the form administrator or the person who's responsible for follow-up can also be made aware that somebody submitted to the form. You can also set it up so that the person who's submitting the form gets a confirmation. It provides a lot of leeway there. Results can be exported as an Excel file or as a CSV file. This does require backend access to the Drupal site, and the ability to create this form page also requires that a user has either site administrator permissions or content supervisor permissions. And we'll talk about the different permission levels in just a bit, but only a site administrator or a content supervisor can create a web form page and can access the results in the back end to the web form submissions. From there, those results can be exported as an Excel or a CSV file, but again, it does require a site administrator or a content supervisor. I think that's it as far as an overview of the web form page. Are there any questions on the page content types though before we move forward into the next type of content? All right, you guys are pretty. All right. So then let's take a look at inherited content types. So again, these are those elements that are really like global type elements where it really exists once in the back end of your website, but it's inherited across all of the pages of your site. The most common of those are going to be your main header, your 4-column footer, and your utility links. And so what those elements are, your utility links, those are, it's an optional element that will display at the very top of your web page in this buff bar that you see here, and it supports some quote-unquote quick links that you can display in that area. So links that you want people to always have access to, but you don't necessarily want to create like a whole page dedicated to them or have them in your sidebars in some capacity. You can place them in the utility links above the header of your page. On the left side, you can have, I believe it's up to 3 links, and then over on the right side, you can have up to 5. You may have seen these on the main university website. These links can go wherever you need them to go. They don't necessarily have to be pages on your website or even about services that you provide, but really maybe just something that's related to your office or that you're asked about often because people associate it with an action that they can do on your website. Maybe this is a really good place to link off to that. So, for instance, we're looking at the Documentary Center website. They use theirs to link over to some information within their own site, but they also use it to link back to their parent organization, which is the Columbian College of Arts and Sciences. So that's a great place and a great way to link over to somebody else's website because they're tangentially related to your organization, and you need to provide that affiliation. That's a great way to do that. Beneath your utility links is the main header of your website. So this will display your site's logo or brand and an optional call to action button, which is completely customizable, and it's It doesn't have to display at all if you don't want to, but if you do, you can customize what that button says and what it links to, completely up to you. So it's really about identifying the site owner, and then if there's an overarching action that you want your users to take, and you want that action to be available across your whole website, you have that optional call to action button that you can place there in the header of your website. And then way down at the very bottom, you have your 4-column footer, and it's called so because there are 4 columns. And these are for free-form text editors. So you can put anything that you want into each one of these columns. There's really not a hard and fast rule on the information that you put there. But what we found is a general practice and works pretty well is to use that first column to, again, identify the site owner and maybe any potential affiliations that you have. So here on the Documentary Center website, we see the School of Media and Public Affairs and the Columbia College of Arts and Sciences being called out as affiliations here in the footer. The second column, we tend to see people put the contact information there. And then for those final 2 columns, we see everything from some quote-unquote quick links and social media icons to button links as like a sort of smaller call to action, things along those lines. Logos and badges from non-GW entities that might be affiliated with the site owner. Really just, creative ways that people have been using it really well, but it's a great place to, just provide some quick, ever-present information and links to your website users from page to page. And all 3 of these elements, again, from the utility links, the main header, and that 4-column footer will display the same way across every page on your website. And when you need to make an edit on the back end of your site, you just have to find that one main header or that one set of utility links or that one 4-column footer, make whatever change that you need to make, and then it's going to populate across your entire website. You don't have to go page to page to page and change it on every single page. Any questions about that? All right. Well, then finally, we are going to talk about specialized content. And what this is, again, these are those supporting elements that you will put on the page to support the main details on the page, whatever's going on in the body text of the page, so to speak. So for those, you're really typically thinking about your hero, a photo gallery, promotions, and then a content set. And so hero is pretty self-explanatory. It's the banner that goes across the very top of your page. In the editorial theme, the hero banner is optional. If you are coming from the classic theme that was launched in 2012, you know that it's required. But in the editorial theme, it's optional. If you don't want to have it there, you don't have to. But it does come in 2 flavors for this theme. What we're looking at here is the full width, full bleed version of the banner, and that means it's going to go from the edges of the screen to the edges of the screen. The other option is the fixed width, which would only expand as far as the content area. So you can kind of see where the text stops on either side of the content on this page. If this was a fixed width hero, then it would only expand across that same amount of distance. But again, what we're seeing here is the full bleed. Additionally, both the fixed width and the full bleed hero there are versions that can be created as rotators, so you can have multiple heroes rotating through for either option. Most people tend to just do the one and have it be static on the page, meaning there's no animation, no rotation. A few people do use a rotating hero. For instance, I know GW Law has one. Just from a management standpoint, it can be difficult to make sure that content stays fresh. So that's why a lot of people like to just get a single static one and put that up on their home page, maybe one on the landing page, the ones that are behind these clicks in the navigation bar here. But other than that, most people choose not to actually have a hero on every page. There are recommended image dimensions, which will be shared with everybody, but custom sizes are supported to fit the needs of your website. So out of the box, the full bleed hero banner is pretty large. So we tend to actually put something custom up on most people's websites. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to help. The photo gallery. So the photo galleries, obviously, they're designed to display a set of images in a gallery type display. There is the option to display a caption with your photo gallery. There is not one on this one, as you can see, so there's no text being displayed with it. It's just the image. The photo gallery will scale to the width of the page based on whether or not there are any sidebars on the page. So this page does not have any sidebars. This is on the Nano, I'm probably going to say this wrong, Nano Fabric, I'm going to say it wrong. This is on the NIC website, NIC, and they do not have sidebars on this page, so you can see the gallery expands from edge to edge of the content area. You have the arrows here to scroll into the next image if you would like to see that. You also have the ability to see the image at higher full resolution, which is why you've got the expand arrows up there in the upper right corner. For the thumbnails, you have the option of displaying them as a grid, so you can see the grid down here. And then there's also the option to display it in a slider. And in that case, instead of seeing all of the thumbnails, you would just see a single row, and that row would then have arrows to the right and left for the user to slide through to see the additional images. So that's pretty much how the photo gallery works. It's a supporting element because what we were hearing from our users wasn't, I want to have a photo gallery page, but it's, I want to put a photo gallery on this other page that I have. So something to support information up on an article page or an event page or a general content page, not necessarily a photo gallery as a standalone page in and of itself. So that's why it's a supporting element. Once you can create it, it can then be added to a page to support whatever information is on it. Next, we are talking about promotion. So we saw this one earlier on the disability support site, this promotion here in the sidebar. And it's a pretty simple one. In this case, it's just the image, but the promotions are actually comprised of a handful of fields. So you have the title field. A link can also be applied to the title. That's optional. You have the image, which we can see here, but your image is also optional. You can have summary text if you would like, and then you can also have a call to action link with your promotion. So all of those, everything about the promotion is optional except for the actual fact that you have to give it a title. And then you, for your own needs for your website or your web page, you can determine which parts of the promotion are important for the user to see and interact with. Do they just need to see the title and the text? Do they need to see the title and an image? Do they just need to see an image and nothing else? It's entirely up to you. And then for the linking, that can go wherever you need it to go. It can go to pages internal to your website, an external website altogether. It can go to a document, or it can be used to actually even feature a video if you would like. And then the sidebar, the promotions can be placed into your sidebars, and then they can also be placed into content sets, which can go in a number of places, and we'll take a look at some content set examples here in just a moment. But again, the promotions, they have a number of display options, a number of fields. So here's another example of some promotions with more information filled in. So you can have, you know, your image, your title, some summary text, a call to action link. You can link your title. You can put a video on top of the image. It's just very expandable and contractible as you need it to be for whatever information that you have to put out and how you want your users to interact with it. And then again, it can be placed either in a sidebar, or as we see here, it's been placed into a content set. A handful of them have been placed into a content set, and they've then been placed onto a page in a grid-like pattern to provide some additional information to the website visitors. So talking about content sets allow you to group existing detail pages, heroes, or promotions into single and often dynamic displays. So to say that a little more simply, they allow you to combine pre-existing items into a single element. The way that you determine what that functionality is going to look like is by the subtype on the content set, which you would obviously see in the back end of your site. And here in this first example that we're looking at on the GW Law site, I mentioned earlier they use a rotating hero, and you can see that here. It's got the dots underneath it to indicate how many rotating or how many heroes are in the rotation. You see the title and the summary text that they have on their hero banner. If this was an actually scrolling element right now on the page, you would actually see some arrows to the right and the left that the user can use to navigate through the heroes. But yeah, this is what the rotating hero looks like. And again, this is the fixed width version, so it only goes as far as the content area on the page, but you can also have it in that full bleed format where it goes to the literal edges of the screen if you would like to. The next content that we're going to look at is the media slider. It's pretty similar to the hero. It just places some of the information in a different area. So any video information, like if there was a video link that was being shared from YouTube or Vimeo, the play button for that will end up on the top of the image for the promotion. And with the media slider and the hero as well, I think this goes without saying, the image is required. So you have your media slider. It's going to display your play button there nice and big in the middle of your photo. And then it's just going to pull that title down at the bottom as a sort of caption, but it doesn't support additional information. If you wanted to have like a caption here, the media slider is not the one that you're going to want to use. There's a different content set that would do that. But you can kind of see how a media slider works to have multiple promotions. You can see there are 3 dots here indicating there are 3 slides that are being used to present the media, which is that video. The grid we saw earlier with the promotion example, but here it is again. You can group multiple promotions together into the grid pattern. And those promotions can display the image, not display the image, display the text, not display the text, display the summary, not display the summary. You can add links, a call to action link, a video link. It's just very, very customizable and expandable for whatever your needs might be. In the back end of Drupal, just so you're aware, we do refer to this as a grid in layman's term, but in the back end of Drupal, you're going to see it referred to as a promotion set. So if you currently have a GW Drupal website and you're trying to create a grid, you're not going to see that. You're going to see promotion sets. So that's what you should be looking for, just as an FYI. And then the last one we're going to touch on is the rotating sidebar. And this one, it works very similar to obviously what the slider for the heroes and the media slider do, but it's designed specifically to display in your web the sidebars of your web page. So just like with promotions, as I've said ad nauseum at this point, it's very customizable as far as how much information that you show. And then again, you're going to have those dots down underneath to indicate how many items are sliding through. And then if the mouse was hovering over this actively, I believe there are also arrows so that the user can navigate to the slider that way as well. And something to keep in mind with all of the sliders, they are on an 8-second automatic rotation that is not editable or customizable on a per site basis. That's just what it is. It's 8 seconds. So you want to keep that in mind for whatever information you put in that slider. Your user's only going to have 8 seconds to consume that information. You don't want to put a ton of text or a lot of different actions that you want them to do. They're not going to be able to consume all of that information within 8 seconds. You also want to be cognizant with your rotators of not overwhelming them. I've actually seen some rotators that had more than 20 slides in them. Please don't do that. Most of your users are not going to pay attention to all 20 of those slides. You're probably only going to get them for the first 2, maybe the first one. It drops off pretty precipitously after that first slide goes through. So just keep that in mind, both to kind of save yourself some maintenance headaches as far as how much effort you're putting into your sliders. Just know as far as an ROI for what you're going to get out of them, keeping it somewhere between 3, maybe 5 is going to still generate a positive user experience, but you really don't want to go much more than that. And you want to make sure that whatever information that you put in there, it's not too overwhelming for your users, that they can do whatever it is that you need them to do or that they need to do within the 8 seconds of that rotation. Any questions? All right. So I've mentioned web accessibility a couple of times now, but let's talk about it in some detail now. So what web accessibility is, and I'm sure some of you on the call are familiar with this, but this might be new to others. It just means making sure that no matter what device a user is coming to your website with, and no matter what type of challenge that user might have, whether they have a visual disability, a physical, hearing, or a cognitive disability, that they can still do what they need to do when they're on your website. They can absorb the information, they can comprehend the information, they can take whatever actions are necessary for them to take. different users will use different devices to come to your website, and depending on the device that they're using, they're going to have a slightly different experience. So it's your job as a site owner to make sure that even if their experience is different, it's still a complete experience. They can still do what they need to do when they're on your website. And assistive devices can be anything from a screen reader to a keyboard to a mobile phone. Like, you have to think about all of these things. We very often get sort of trapped in tunnel vision when we're coming up with our site content of what we see on our desktop in that moment. But then when you go and look at it, even just on a mobile phone, you realize, wait, this is a really subpar experience. This isn't right. And it's most often, 90% of the time, fixable by adjusting your content. And it's not a system thing, and it's not a design thing. It's just making adjustment to your content. So those are the things that you need to think about when you're developing your content. Don't just think about desktop. You have to think about an array of devices at this day and age. It's a best practice. It's the ethical thing to do, but it's also a legal requirement for the university to make sure that our website content is accessible for all of our users. So what this means for you as site owners is using the different elements in Drupal appropriately. So when you're putting text into your body editor and you're assigning your subheads, use those subheads to identify the topics on your page. Do not use them as decorations. We see a lot where content owners want to make something visually prominent, so they'll make like a whole paragraph, a subhead 3 or a subhead 2, because those styles on the subheads are bigger than the body text. The problem is, if I am a visually impaired user, or if I have some sort of cognitive challenge, and it's just easier for me to use a screen reader to read the page aloud to me, and if I've set my settings to say, just read me the subheads right now, I'm looking for something specific, I can't skip quickly through that paragraph. I have to listen to the whole thing because the content owner applied the subhead styles to that paragraph because they wanted their sighted users coming on a desktop to see this font in a big, bold style to make it stand out to them visually prominent, not understanding the effects that it was going to have on me as a user who has to rely on a screen reader. So when you're using your subheads, make sure that you're using them appropriately. They should be used to identify the topics on your page, not as decoration. For your images, all images should have what's called alternate text, or more frequently you'll hear it referred to as an alt tag. And what this means is you should be describing what's visually going on in that image. If you have a photo that you've put up on the page, the alt text, which by the way is a required field in Drupal, it should describe what's in that photo. A lot of times people will put like the file name, but that's actually not appropriate because, again, if I can't see what that photo is, my screen reader is going to read the alt text aloud to me instead. So if you put the file name for your photo, that's not going to help me. If you put the event name for whatever event that photo was taken at, that's not going to help me. I need to literally know what's going on in the image. So if it's a photo of George dancing on the basketball court, then that's what the alt text needs to be. George, GW George mascot dances on the basketball court. That's perfect alt text. Now I, as a user who can't see the image for whatever the reason might be, and it could also be a technological reason. Like, think of all the times maybe you've been on the metro and you're checking your email on your phone and you just don't have enough bandwidth to actually load the image, so it displays some text instead. And a lot of times it just says photo, and you're like, what the heck is that? That's because that person didn't put alt text on their image. So that's what your users are going to see if they can't load an image for whatever reason, that alt text. So you want to make sure it's descriptive for your users. If it's a photo or a graphic that has text on it, whatever text is in that photo or in that graphic, that needs to go in the alt text field. And that's why we tell people don't use posters and flyers as images on your page. And definitely don't just drop a poster or a flyer onto the page because you think, okay, I'm done. Everything the user needs to know is in that flyer. Save, I can check that off my list. No, because if I can't see that image, I get none of that information. And if all you put in your alt text is flyer, then I really have no idea what's going on. It just, all I'm going to hear is flyer. I'm not going to get any of the information about your program or your event or whatever it is that was in that flyer. So in those cases, when you have a flyer, we say just take some element of it that's decorative, use that as the image, but all of the crucial information, put that in your body text. And then just put that little piece of decorative portion of that flyer in as the main image on the page. put the appropriate alt text on it so I still know what's going on in that decorative image, but then that's how you can make sure that that content is accessible for all of your users. And then just the other features and functionality in the website, when we provide you guys the instructions on how to use them, we want to make sure that you understand these are the steps that you need to take to make sure that you aren't just putting your website out there without glitches, but also making sure that the content is accessible for everybody. Like each one of these fields has a purpose and can potentially positively or negatively affect somebody's experience when they're on your website. So you want to make sure that you're following our instructions to the best of your ability to make sure that your content is web accessible when you put it out there. Any questions on the web accessibility? All right. So then taking a look at user accounts, I've mentioned different levels a few times throughout, and here's a quick snapshot of what the different user accounts are. There are 3: Site Administrator, Content Supervisor, and Contributor. You can see Site Administrator has the most amount of permissions, followed next by Content Supervisor with just a handful fewer, and then Content Contributors, which have the fewest permissions in the back end of a website. So your site administrator is really supposed to be the person that owns the website. And we always recommend that there be at least 2 people in that role on a given website. That way, if one person is out of the office, the other person can kind of step in to do some of those administrative tasks like managing user accounts or making changes to some of the advanced configurations. And it also helps if one person leaves their role at the university or within your organization, you still have somebody who can get in there and do everything that needs to be done. The next level down is your content supervisor, and this really is just about somebody who needs to manage the content on the website. They don't really need to, well, they definitely don't need to manage user accounts, but they don't really need to, make advanced configurations on the site. They just really need to be able to take information from your various resources every day or every week, and then get that information into the website and generate web pages for you. So that's what the content supervisor role is meant to do. And then at the lowest level is your content contributor. A lot of times we see this role given to workers that are going to just temporarily be assisting with the website. So whether that be a contract employee or a student worker, something along those lines, typically that role will just be able to enter content into the website, but they cannot publish it to the front end for your website visitors. A content supervisor or site administrator will have to review the content they've put in and then actually publish it to the front end of the website once it's been approved. So yeah, those are your 3 levels: your site administrator, your content supervisor, and your content contributor. So then the Workbench Dashboard, this is what you're going to see whenever you first log into your Drupal website, and really it's just a place to give you a quick snapshot of what's going on your website from a content perspective. Any edits you've made recently will be over here in the upper right, and then at the very bottom, any edits that have been made by any other content supervisors or site administrators will be listed down here, because this is only the stuff that's recently been published to the front end. If a content contributor has come in and made an edit, because they cannot publish things to the front end, their edits will not be represented here. You have these tabs over here in the upper right for actions that you can take, and one of those is My Drafts and Needs Review. This is where you can go to look at content that is not published to the front end, whether it's something that you yourself were working on or a contributor has set as needs review, so that you as a site admin or a content supervisor can then go in and publish it. You can quickly access that information at this needs review tab right there. And then the Drupal admin menu. This is this black bar that you hear up at the top. It's always going to be present as long as you're logged into the backend of your GW Drupal website. And it just has some links to various administrative areas on the website, back to that Workbench Dashboard, for instance. This house icon will take you to what the front end view of your website looks like while keeping you logged into Drupal. And then you can get to the media list, where it will display all of the assets, your images and documents that have been uploaded to the website. And bear in mind that once you upload something once, you don't have to upload it again. It's accessible site-wide. So if there's a PDF that you need to link to across 5 different pages, you only have to upload it once. And then you can access it over and over again on those various pages to create that PDF link. You don't have to keep doing it across every single page. The menus option, it presents a drag and drop interface for you to change the order of your navigation if you would like to, but we do not recommend using this to create your menu links. It's not really designed to do that well. You should be doing that at the page level, and I'll demonstrate that for you shortly. Node queues, you can actually ignore this option. It's not functional, but we can't hide it. And then finally, there's taxonomy. Taxonomy provides access to keyword lists that you can use to basically use keyword tagging throughout your site. It's a very specific thing that you have to do. So if you haven't really worked with one of our content strategists, we recommend that you leave it as is, because if you don't really set it up just right, and if you don't have everybody within your organization aware of what the plan is, it can actually get really messy really quickly. So if you want to have any sort of keyword taxonomy tagging strategy on your site, we definitely recommend that you work with one of our content strategists to do so. They're available to do so at office hours or via email, and I'll share that information with you guys in the follow-up resources. But yeah, that's what the taxonomy options do. And just keep in mind the bar that you're seeing right here, this is representative of what a content supervisor would see. If you were a contributor, you would see even fewer links. If you were a site administrator, you would see additional links. But this is what a content supervisor would see whenever they were actually logged into Drupal. All right, so that's actually it for the presentation. What I'm going to go ahead and do next is log into the backend of a site. So let me share my browser window with you all, and you should be able to see this page, the virtual private network page on the IT website. And I have this one up just as a reminder to let you guys know, to log into a GW Drupal website, you have to be on a GW network. If you're on campus and you're on a wired or wireless GW network, you should be fine. If you're off campus like I am, you have to log into the VPN, and you can download the VPN from the IT website, GWIT. It is under Services, Accounts, and then somewhere in here is Virtual Private Network. I'm not exactly sure where at this point because they recently relaunched. But you can see here there's the link to be able to do that and some information for you guys here. So if you are ever off campus, and sometimes even on campus, and you get a message that says access denied, and then I think it's like error message 1106, and it says your IP address has been blocked. Your IP address has not been blocked. That is a very terrible message that we cannot customize, unfortunately. But really all it's saying is that you're not on a GW network right now, so you do not have permission to log into the back end of a GW Drupal website. If you're on campus, make sure you're on a GW wired or wireless network. If you're off campus, make sure that you have the VPN installed and you have it, you've logged into it, and then you will be able to access the login page of your GW Drupal website. So I'm going to go ahead and log into this one. This is our little training site that we like to share with you guys, and we're going to get started. We're going to create a page. Okay, so I hope you guys can see this. It looks kind of small on my end, and I hope it's not small on your screens as well. I'm going to bump it up a little bit. Okay, so this is my Workbench Dashboard. Again, I can see any edits that I have made recently here, any edits that anyone else has made. Site-wide down here, I've got my quick action tabs here if I need them. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hover over my Workbench, and then I'm going to click on Create Content. And by clicking on Create Content, I see a list of all of the content types that I have access to. Because I'm a site administrator, which you can see my Drupal admin bar is pretty long here, I have access to all of the content types. Again, if I was a content supervisor or a contributor, I would see fewer items in my admin bar, and I would also see fewer items available to me in the content types, because I'm only required to manage a certain amount of information in my GW Drupal website at that level. But as a site admin, I can see everything. We are going to create a general content page, so I'm going to click on that. So anytime a field is required, you're going to see that red asterisk, so you can see it here for subtype and title. I don't really need to change anything on my subtype, so I'm going to leave that as is, but I'm going to go ahead and put in a title here. I'm going to say Natasha's Editorial 101 page. So my title is going to influence what my page link is going to be. It's also going to influence what the navigation link is going to be should I choose to actually have one. The next field down is subtitle. It's optional, and most of the time you don't need it. There's a hidden summary field. You don't really need to use this one as often. It does come in handy on the article and the event page content type if you have a feed where you want to have like a custom blurb display. The summary field is the best way to get that custom blurb. We recommend somewhere in the range of 2, no more than 3 sentences, because at that point it's going to get cut off. So your body field, we are going to put some text in here, and forgive me, I did not pull up my sample text. I'm going to just pull some sample text here. I think it's sample-text. No, it's just sample text. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy all of this. So this is the page. Here we go. I'm hoping we'll have time to get through all of this, but we shall see. All right, so most often when you guys have content that you need to get into your website, you're getting it from another source. You've been, somebody's emailed you a Word document or a PDF, or they've said, you know, go to this other website and pull this information and then get it onto our site. When that happens, we refer to that as you got your content from an external source. The thing with that is that that external source has code that's making that program work the way that it works and making that website look the way that it looks. So when you go and you hit, you know, Control V or Control C after copying it from that other website, you are also pasting in that code, and that can actually wreak havoc on your website. So I don't think it happens anymore. You don't see those styles like in your face right here, but that code is very likely in the source code of your page, and it can make the format on your website get a little bit screwy and just cause you a lot of stress. So what you want to do when you copied your content from an external source is use one of these 2 clipboard icons in your text editor. The one in the middle is paste as plain text. This is going to strip out every kind of code that you copied onto your clipboard. So if there's a link, that link is going to be gone. If there's some formatting and some styles on that text, that formatting and those styles, those are going to be gone as well. So that's what your paste as plain text will do. Your second icon here, which is the one I'm going to use, is the paste from Word option. And this is the one that is going to try and keep any styles and formatting that are like at the basic level. So like bullet points and numbered lists, bold, italics, things along those lines. It's going to try and keep those for you. It's also going to try and keep subhead styles for you. If the document or the website that you copied from has subhead styles applied, it will actually try and keep those as well. Most importantly, it will keep any links that you've copied onto your clipboard. So that's the reason why people like to use it the most, is so that they don't have to re-add those links in. So after you open up the Paste from Word window, you paste your text into that window and you click the OK button. Then all of your text is here in the page for you. You can see there were some subheads on the text there, and so Drupal and the Paste from Word icon there try to maintain those subhead styles for me, which is very, very helpful. So I'm actually going to use this icon here, this expand icon, to make the WYSIWYG editor full size. I think it's going to make it a little easier for you guys. So with these subheads, I'm going to leave them as is because this is exactly how they're supposed to be used. Here we're talking about features available in both the standard and editorial theme, and that's using a subhead 2 format. Beneath that, we talk specifically about how to paste content into a GW Drupal website, and that's at the heading 3 level. So these are all being used appropriately. I don't really need to change them. If I wanted to, I could add some additional subheads here. You'll see underneath your paragraph format drop-down here, the normal one, that's your regular paragraph font, but it goes from an H2 all the way down to an H6. They're all styled to some degree. When you're using your subhead styles, and remember this is an accessibility function, when you're using your subhead styles, you want to make sure that you are going in sequential order as much as possible. So the first one on your page should either be an H2, potentially an H3, but then the next one should be either a 3, 4, 5, or 6 as needs be. You don't want to jump around with the numbers. So you don't want to start with a 2 and then go down to a 5 and then back up to a 3 and then maybe a 4. You want to make sure that they're going sequentially in order because that will have an effect on the user's experience in the back end. So here I've got a 2, here I've got a 3, I've got another 2 down here because this information is seen as being at the same level as this information. So that's okay. It's okay to have 2 subheads at the same level if they have the same prominence. You just want to make sure you're not jumping around without any sort of, sequential, logical sequential ordering going on. If you can kind of see there's a lot of space here, and that's just a property of, I copied it from a Google Doc here, and there are some empty spaces in here that don't have padding around them. Like you can see, there's really no breathing space between where this cursor is and the text here. But in Drupal, there's padding around everything. So these extra spaces cause a lot of extra padding. So remember that when you're putting your content on your web page, you don't want to do that, that double space afterwards. And I actually lost my styles there. If you do or hit enter twice, you're going to have a lot of padding around between your next set of text elements. And I picked the wrong one. So there's really no need to have empty spaces unless you are intentionally trying to have a lot of white space, because you're going to have a lot of white space. I'm going to grab my text here. This is a list of items that I want to have in either a bulleted or a numbered format, so I don't need to manually create those bullets or manually number that list. I can go up here to my text editor, and I can either hit my numbered list here. You can see everything shifted nicely. I get everything auto-formatted. If I wanted those to be bullets, I can just switch over. If I don't want either, I just undo it. So again, you don't have to manually put your bullets or your numbers in there. There's a formatted option in the text editor for you, and you just highlight the text, click the one that you need. Let's talk about hyperlinks. So I'm going to make this a subhead 4 just to really drive home the point of appropriately using your subheads. So with hyperlinks, you always, always, always want to make your links inline contextual links. And what that means is use the plain language description of what's behind the click. A lot of times we'll see on websites, for more information, click here. And then, so here, I'll actually put some examples for you guys because I think it works best that way. So what you don't want to do is, for more information, click here. And then, make this the link. From an accessibility standpoint and also from a search engine optimization standpoint, this is bad. What's going to happen is somebody who's using a screen reader to just hear the links on the page, all they're going to hear is click here. They're going to have no idea what's behind that link. And so they don't know if they need it. Like, they don't know if that's the information that they need. So there's a good chance they're not going to click it. From a search engine optimization standpoint, it's also going to do the same thing. The search engine crawlers from Google and Bing and all the other search engines out there, they're looking to see what you contextually say you're linking to. So they're going to see that you said you're linking to something called click here. That's not helpful to them. It's not going to boost your SEO rankings. You want to make sure that this link, the text, is indicative of where the user is going to click to. So then the other thing we see is for more information, that's not how you spell information. Click here. That's not how you spell here. And then you'll see the link on the page. You also don't want to do that. This will automatically get turned into a link when the page is published, so it will be a functional link. But from an accessibility standpoint, my screen reader might not know how to read this. So it might read it letter by letter to me, which is not helpful to me to sit here and hear www.gwu.edu. And that's just a short link. Imagine if it was a much longer link being read to me letter by letter. That would be so unhelpful. And other screen readers will actually try and read this as a full word. Like, I've actually heard screen readers try and read www.gw.edu as a word, and it sounds kind of funny until I think about the fact that there are people out there who are actually hearing this, and they are not getting the information that they need. So you don't want to put your raw URL in there either. What you want to do, again, is make that link contextual. Make it the plain language description of what's behind the click. So in this case, I would say for more information about the university, go to the George Washington, we're going to spell that right, University website. And then I would make the George Washington University website my link because that is where I'm sending people to after the click. So to actually make that link, I've got my text highlighted. I click on this chain link icon in the text editor. And then here in the link properties window, I go to link type and I change that to URL. In this field for the URL, this is where I actually put the link that I'm sending people to. And because this is a link that's not on my website, I'm going to then go to the Target tab, and I'm going to select New Window, and I'm going to click OK. And now I can see that my link is in there. And if somebody's coming to this from a screen reader, they're going to hear the George Washington University website. They might hear nothing else on this page, but they'll hear the George Washington University website, and they're going to know what that is. If it's an SEO search engine crawler coming to my page, it's going to see the George Washington University website, and it'll say, okay, that's what they see that they're linking to, and it's going to use that information when it determines how it's going to rank my page in its search results for a website searcher. So this is how you would make your link contextual. If this was a page within my Drupal website that I needed to link to, what I would do instead is I would use the Drupal link type. So we're going to pretend this is my nice contextual link. I'm going to click on that chain link icon again. I'm going to leave that default Drupal link type set. And then I'm just actually going to go to this link field and start typing in the name of a page. And Drupal is going to give me results based off of what I'm typing. I then need to click on the item that matches what I want to link to. Don't just type in the name of the page in its entirety. You have to actually click on the one that Drupal provides to you in its list. And then I just click OK, and now I've got a link to a page within my own website. I don't need to open this up in another browser tab because this is a page within my own website. If it was somebody else's website, even somebody else within the university ecosystem, I'm going to open it in a new tab. That way the website visitor has their website or their web page open, but they also still have mine open over in the original browser tab. And then finally, to link to documents. And there's a sample sentence down here, which you can see. We are, again, going to highlight the text that's serving as the contextual inline information. We're going to click on that chain link icon again. For link type, again, we're going to select URL. But before, the next thing we need to do is actually click on Browse Server. And what that's going to allow us to do is to locate a document that I've either already uploaded into my site, and if I have not uploaded a document into my site, I have the ability to go through the upload process by clicking on the upload button here, choose file, and then going through that process if I would like. But I do see there's a document here, so I'm just going to highlight that one, and I can either double click on it or click Insert File. It has the same action. Because it's a document, I'm going to go to the Target tab again, and I'm going to say open that in a new window, and then I'm going to click OK. And now we can see that I have my link to my document on my page here. Now the reason why we open it in a new window is because it's still very much a habit of ours when we are looking at documents on the page. When we're done reading the document, we close the window. If you're not done with whatever you need to do on the website, that can be annoying because now you got to get that browser tab back open and hope that you weren't like in an incognito window and get back to where you needed to go. So that's why we open the document links in new windows. The other thing we do is we make sure that the document type is in parentheses within the contextual link. That will give all of your visitors, whether they have some sort of disability or not, a heads up that this is a document link. For somebody using an assistive device, they can say, you know what, my device isn't really optimized for this type of document. I need to call in now and get personal support. For somebody on a phone, they can say, you know what, every time I click on a PDF link, I download that thing to my phone, and I hate that. So I'm not going to click on this on my phone. I'm going to do it later on when I'm at a desktop. And then for your users on a desktop who are able to see it, they just have that additional information as well. They know that they're about to actually open up a document of some kind versus another web page. So it just informs your users of what's behind the click. And so here are some of the don'ts that we actually went through already as far as don't spell out the raw URL. Also, you don't want to add extra styles to your links. So making them bold, adding italics or underlines, you don't really want to do that. It can just be a little bit confusing for your users from site to site. I'm sure all of us have experienced in our regular day-to-day that we have to go through so many different GW websites, and it gets to a point where we can just look at a page and within a nanosecond know what is and what is not a link. That's because those link styles are already automatic on the page. Like you can see here, the link is automatically underlined. There's automatically a rollover color that gets applied to it. I, as a site owner, didn't have to do anything. It just happened automatically when I created the link. If I had elected to come in here and made the link bold and add italics to it and take off the underline or whatever the case might be, as a website user who I've gone to, 5 other websites in the GW ecosystem, and I get to your website and suddenly things don't look the same and I don't know where I'm supposed to click and what's a link and what's not a link. And now I'm a little bit confused and a little bit frustrated because I just needed to do something really quick, but now I have to stop and think about it more than I really should have had to. So that's why we say don't apply extra styles to your links. We've made them to conform across all of the sites, so that the user just doesn't have to think about it, about what a link is on the page. Any questions so far? All right. So the last link style we're going to take a look at is the button link style. And for that, same as always, you make your link text contextual. Click on your chain link icon. I'm going to go ahead and link to a page within my site just to make it easy on us. And then once I have my link created, I go to my styles dropdown, and you can see that there are some button styles here. And it's really just a matter of picking the one that you want, and it gets applied. There are 4 colors, so dark blue, light blue, green, and yellow, and 2 styles, the standard, which has a background fill, and the ghost, which does not. It just has the outline. And then there are 3 sizes. There's small, medium, and large. So yeah, that's really as simple as it is. If you don't like the style that you initially applied while the text is still highlighted, or if it's not highlighted, you can go back in there and highlight it. Click on this T icon with the X on it, and that will remove that button link style, and then you can go in there and you can pick a different one. So that's all you got to do. But you definitely have to make sure that you take the original style off. Otherwise, on the front end for your users, the Drupal is actually going to keep applying the additional button style code to it. It's not going to remove any of the old code. And on the front end for your users, that could present an issue where, like on desktop, maybe it's like a small blue button, but then when they hover over it, suddenly it's a giant green button. So make sure, again, if you change your mind about the style you originally picked, use that strip formatting icon there to remove the original style before you select a new one. All right, so looking at some things that are specific to the editorial theme, we have what are called WYSIWYG templates, as well as tabs and accordions. And so what those are, these last 3 icons here in the text editor. With the template options, there are 3 quote-unquote categories of templates. There are the percentage-based templates, and these first handful that you see here where it says 2 across, 3 across, and so on, these are going to go across the full width of the content area, followed by these where it's maybe 50% centered. So this is like one template. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. It's one chunk of text or images that are only going to go across 50% of the content width, and that's going to get centered into the space of the content area. Same thing for the 66% centered, and you can see there's quite a few options in here. So these percentage-based ones allow you to have chunks of information sitting either horizontally next to each other, or you can have a single item, but maybe it's not going across the full content width of the page. It's instead taking up a percentage of the content width of the space, and then it's centered on the page. After you get into your percentage ones, you then get into the left and right aligned templates, and these are pretty simple, either a right or left aligned image, and either it has text wrap or it does not. So you can use those as you see fit for your content as well. These will take up the full width of the content area, just be aware of that. And then finally at the bottom, we have the testimonial template. So this is if you just want to quickly drop a testimonial onto a page, and a relatively short one. They don't work well when you have really long ones. This allows you to do that. So there's the testimonial heavy, and what that means is the actual text on the page. So I'll drop this one on the page so you can see. The font for the testimonial itself is pretty heavy. You've got your image in there, a little quotation widget up at the top, and some affiliate information about the person. And then if I needed to put a new template in, hover towards the bottom of the template space, and you'll see this this red return icon here. So you just click on that. Oh, I'm actually within. Oh, here we go. My icon's down here. So I actually already have my icon down here, so I can put my next one in. But typically what you'll see once you get to hover around the bottom of the template is this red return icon. When you click on that, it creates basically it closes the template code and allows you to go just back into the regular content area on the page. But I already have that already, which is why I wasn't seeing it where I was expecting it to. If I go back into the template options, and you can see there's a version of the testimonial heavy where the image is right aligned instead of left aligned. And then there's a version called Testimonial Light, and this one too also has right and left aligned options. The light version just has the font for that testimonial in a lighter weight font. So everything else about it is the same as far as the image, the affiliation information, cute little quotation widget. It's just the font itself that's different. And then the last option is the testimonial quote. And this is if you don't have an image to go with the testimonial, then you can just have the text in there. And the default is for it to use the testimonial light. But if you know you're feeling a little brave, you can go in there and highlight that text and actually change it to be the testimonial heavy up from your style menu if you would like to. The other thing that you can do, and I haven't done this in a while, if you're comfortable looking at source code, you can change this little quotation mark by clicking on the source button in your text editor, finding your testimonial, which I believe is down here. So let's find, here we go. I'm sorry, I'm looking for a specific line of code, and I'm not seeing it because I haven't done it in a minute. I believe it's this one right here. So you see where it says column medium 12 doodad. After doodad, just put in -Twitter. And then if I go back into my page and I scroll down, now I've got a Twitter icon. So that's a fun little thing that we thought we'd put in there for you guys to make these just a little more fun, so they don't all have quotation marks. You can actually indicate it's a quote directly from Twitter. We also put one in for, I believe, Instagram and for Facebook. So instead of -Twitter, you put -Facebook or -Instagram, and you would get the appropriate icon in there instead of just the quotation marks. But that is how you would use your templates. You would literally just drop it on the page, and then once it's on the page, you just fill it in with the information that's specific to what you want to talk about. And then the last thing that we're going to look at in the text editor is the tabs and accordions. So the way that the tabs and accordions work is step one, you would click the icon for the one that you want on your page. So we'll start with tabs. The window that pops up next is going to basically be where you put the text in for each one of the individual tabs and or accordions. So this is a tab, so I'm going to say tab 1, and that's going to actually be my tab title, and then I'm just going to put some gibberish in there. And then I've got tab 2, And we're going to put a little more gibberish. And you can see there's a sort of scaled down text editor here for you to do some formatting in there if you would like to. It's not a full text editor because you don't really want to overwhelm the page with A, information, and B, code. So that is why you see sort of a truncated, what's called a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, text editor here. So then I've got tab 3, a little more text in there. If I needed additional tabs, I could click this Add a New Item button. If I was happy with what I've gotten on there so far, I could just click OK. If I want to reorder them, I can just click these arrows here to do that. So now tab 3 is in the second position, and I can drop that back down. If I didn't want it at all, I could just click the X and it would actually get deleted. And Drupal's going to ask me if I'm sure if I want to delete it first. In this case, I'm not going to. So then I'm just going to say OK. And now we can see the beginning of my tabs on the page. And then the process is basically identical if you want to have accordions instead. So just get your cursor on the page where you want your accordions to be. I've got my cursor right here. And then click on this last icon here where you can kind of see it's supposed to represent accordions. You get the same sort of properties window. So accordion 1 and really nonsensical placeholder text, accordion 2, more nonsensical text, and then finally accordion 3. And I'm going to change it up and say placeholder. Again, I can reorder these if I would like to, add additional items, delete them, whatever I need. The thing to know with the accordions that you do not have to do on the tabs is before you actually click OK, I always recommend going to this settings panel here, tab, expanding the theme option, and then changing that to editorial style. And I'll show you why. I'm going to leave it set to GW style. And you can see we've got these gray accordions on the page. Yes, they're going to get the job done. They don't really look that nice. So if I double click on them, which is what you would do if you need to get back in and make some edits, I'm going to go to settings now, and I'm going to click editorial style, and I'm going to click OK. And now I can see that they've got a lighter style that's more in line with what my tabs look like, and also just holistically more in line with what the editorial theme styles look like as a whole. So I just saw the time. I can't believe that we're already almost at time already. So I'm going to scroll down here and quickly get my page saved. Before I do that, it is a requirement to pick a site placement term. Site placement does not play as huge a role in the editorial theme as it did in the classic theme. So it's not really necessary to have all of your navigation links as site placement terms. You really can have it down to just like 2, which could be like home and then everything else. But you do have to pick something. But now that I've got my page saved, we can see I've got my page title going. I've got my subhead, so you can see my subhead 2. Subhead 3 is just slightly smaller, so this is why I was saying sometimes people will come and they will use these for visual prominence, but they actually serve a functional purpose for accessibility and for search engine optimization. So make sure you're using them appropriately. We can scroll down and we can see the examples that we had for the links. Again, that link did automatically get applied, but this is not good for accessibility or for search engine optimization. This is the example for what we would actually want people to do, making that an inline contextual link. We've got my button link in there, and then we've got my my testimonials in there with my heavy quote or heavy information. You can see it's kind of running over itself because it's squishing into this middle column space. Same thing for this one, but the font's lighter. My cute little Twitter doodad, and then my tabs and my accordions. And I will actually show you guys what this looks like in a private window, and hopefully this will work. So when you're logged into Drupal, if you don't set this to be a page without sidebars, you're always going to see the empty spaces to the side. On the front-end view for your visitors, though, because there's nothing in those sidebars, you can see everything expands into those empty spaces. So always keep that in mind, that what you're seeing in the back end when you're logged in might not be what you actually see on the front end as a website visitor. So I always recommend having the page open in if it's a published page, having it open in a private browsing tab, so you can actually see what your front end users will see as well before you kind of go through the grievance of this isn't the way that I wanted it to look. There's all this weird empty space going on. Things are jumbled up on top of each other because your front end users might not actually be having that same experience. So always keep that in mind. I'm going to get this out of the way. If you want this to be a page without sidebars, I'm going to go into New Draft to make additional edits to this page. And I'm going to scroll down all the way to the bottom here where it says Panelizer. The default theme or default template for a general content page is with sidebars, but I can just expand this drop down and change it to be one without sidebars. And now when I save the page, again, I'll see that those sidebars are gone. So now this is more representative of what my front-end user would see because there's no sidebars that I have to contend with even in the back-end view of the site. However, something to keep in mind is if you want to have a main image, which is this field right here, and I'm going to zoom in because, again, that looks so tiny. So your main image, this is going to be your featured image on the page. To get a main image on the page, you want to click on File Browser and then Browse. And then that's going to open up your file browser window. It looks a little funky because I'm zoomed in right now, but that's okay. In the editorial theme, it's designed to scale your images on the page. So we always recommend putting your images in at a higher resolution, not at a fixed dimension, like a fixed small one just for what you see on the desktop, but at a higher resolution, and then the system will actually do the scaling for you. And the same holds true for the images that go in the templates on the page that we were looking at in the text editor. You want to put those in at a higher resolution, typically around 1080 wide, and then the height will be proportional to whatever is in the subject of your photo or your graphic. But you don't want it to be like a small image. Like you can see here, there's like a 180 by 101. That's not really going to work well because what's going to end up happening is Drupal is going to say, or the editorial team is going to say, I show images as a high resolution, so it's going to blow that image up to fit, and then it's going to be blurry. So you want to put your images in at a higher resolution and allow Drupal to scale them as necessary. So I'm going to just grab this one because I can see it's at a nice high 1080 by 1200. And again, I can double click or I can click Insert File. And then once that image is in there, I can see I now have my alternate text field, and it is required. So I need to say what is visually in this photo. I don't know what building that is, so I'm just going to pretend and call it District House. And I'm going to say District House Residential. I'm spelling this wrong. All hours. And then I'm going to let my browser pick my spelling. So I made sure I said District House Residential Hall because that's what this is, presumably. And then the word hours is in there, so I had to make sure the word hours is in there. So now if I just close my eyes and say out loud District House Residential Hall hours, I know what the context of this graphic is, this photo is, even if I can't see it. That's the test that you want to do when you're putting your alternate text in your images. This, if I had just put the file name, if I had put this in here, and I closed my eyes and I said HWC underscore HP underscore hours underscore, that's completely unuseful. Like I have no idea what that means in the context of the actual visual of the image. So that's why you don't want to use your file names because rarely are they indicative of the actual visual. That's also why you don't want to use event names and program names. Because they are rarely indicative of the actual visual of the image. That's what your alternate text is for. So now I've got my alternate text there. I'm going to scroll down and publish this page again. And I'm also going to bump it back down to regular dimensions once it loads. And I do see that we're at time. If you need to hop off, feel free to do so. I don't want to keep anybody on the line unnecessarily. So here we can see I've got my main image in there. And I expected that to actually be left aligned. But you can see my main image is in there, my text is underneath, and everything is going. If I change my page template back to being one with sidebars, my expectation is that my photo is going to shift, and hopefully that will happen. I might need to clear my cache, though, to make that happen. It's still, okay. So it's still between the title and the text of my page. I think there might be a caching issue going on with the code base on this site. But typically for a page without sidebars, your image will actually get right aligned, and then your text will wrap around it. But I do think that my site, the code is not up to date, so I need to clear the cache at the server level, which I'm not going to do in the middle of our training. But just know that that's the typical behavior that you would actually see in the Drupal ecosystem. The last thing that I'm going to show you guys before we call it a day, and thank you for hanging in here with me, is how to edit your homepage. So in the classic theme of GW Drupal, the way that you get content on your homepage is actually by using site placement values. What you actually do in the editorial theme is you use this button way down here at the bottom that says Customize this page. You click on that, and then you pick the region on your page where you want it to be. Now, that's probably always going to be in this top region. I don't see a reason to put it in the full bleed section. The next thing that you want to do, and let me increase the font sizes for you guys, is click on Existing Node. So this last option in the list with this blue icon next to it, you want to click on that. It says Existing Node. And then you'll just type in the title of an existing page in your website. So I'm going to type in what I started calling my page. I've got 2 of them in there, but I think this is the one from today. So you just click on the one that you need. And I'm going to leave all of the settings as is and show you guys what happens. So the first thing that happens is the page goes in there. Everything that I want is in there exactly how I put it on my general content page. And now this is actually going to serve as the content from my home page if I leave it just as is. There are a few things you can do to customize it. So you can click on that override title checkbox to hide where it says Natasha's Editorial 101 page. And you could put something custom in there if you would like. So right now I just checked the box and I left the custom title field blank. But I could change this to say something else like welcome. This is terrible title text, but I'm just going to say welcome to my website. I can uncheck this box that says include the node link, so the link back to the page, or things like add comment and whatnot. And then the build mode doesn't really have as big of an impact, but I always like to change the build mode to full content. And what that means is if I have a lot of content on this page, Drupal's not going to try and truncate that in any way. It's just going to display everything that I have on that page. So we can see now my page title got changed to Welcome to my website instead of Natasha's Editorial 101 page. And then everything else is in there as is. So now I can click Save. I'm going to refresh the page and then bump it back down to the standard size. But you can see that page I just created is now serving as the actual home page content in my editorial theme. That's actually how you do manage the home page in the editorial theme. And it's also something you're going to do frequently throughout the rest of your website. If you create a content set that you need to add to a page, the method that I just took using the Customize This Page button, that's how you would do that. With the content set, there are predefined panes. So instead of using existing node, you would go to, gosh, that's so small. You would go to the display views, GW display views - site placement, and then you would search for the specific content set type that you need. And I recommend doing that with the filter option. You can actually just put in content set here, and it will filter this list down to what you potentially need. But the workflow that you just saw me took is one that you're going to use frequently in the editorial theme as far as getting different elements, individual elements onto the page. But that's specifically how you would do it for your homepage. So again, thank you for hanging in there with me. I know we are over time. Do you guys have any questions for me that you would like me to answer? Is there something I didn't go over? Something I went over too quickly? All right. The last thing I'm going to show you then, I think I said that before and I wasn't accurate with that, is the menu settings for the page. I didn't actually set up menu settings on this page. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to click on New Draft so that I can edit my page. And then way down at the bottom, beneath the Panelizer option, I'm going to click where it says Menu Settings, and I'm going to check that box. And if I now just go back and I save the page, what I've done is I've said make this a link in my menu navigation, and the default settings have it so that it will be a link in the blue primary navigation bar. Now, if I wanted this to be a subpage, what I need to do in that case is when I'm configuring my menu settings, let's make this bigger for you guys. I need to go down to where it says parent item and expand that primary navigation dropdown, and then I need to pick a different parent page. If I leave it set as primary navigation, that's what puts it in that blue bar. If I need it to be a subpage for something that's already in the blue bar, I need to pick that item. So in this case, I'll say I want it to be a subpage of About Our Department. And now if I publish it again, I'll see that it's no longer in the blue bar. It is now a subpage to About Our Department. Other things you can do under that menu settings option is where the menu link title field is. You can customize what the label is going to be. So if I didn't want it to fully say Natasha's Editorial 101 page, I can edit that text so that maybe it just says Editorial 101 or Natasha's page, then publish it so that that now becomes what you see in the navigation bar instead. And if I was unhappy with the order for where this link ended up, if I wanted it above of Carolina Hurricanes, I could go to the menu admin, primary navigation, and then I can grab it right here by the crosshairs and then just drag it up. It's going to get highlighted in yellow with the little asterisk next to it to indicate that there's a change that needs to be saved. So I'm going to scroll down, click that Save Configuration button, and then if I go back to my home page, I see now that my page is the second item in the list instead of being it's the first item in the list instead of being the second item in the list. So that is how I would make adjustments to my navigation. And that is truly the last thing that I have for you guys. I'm going to ask again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to take yourself off of mute, put it into the chat box. I'm happy to answer it there as well. All right. Well, if you guys do have any questions, feel free to take advantage of my team's office hours. They are held weekly in person on the Foggy Bottom campus. This semester, we are in Gelman Library in the basement level in Computer Lab B01 every Thursday from 10 till noon. With the exception, oh no, that was this week, we didn't have it. So with the exception now of July 4th, we will not be there on July 4th. So, and I hope you guys won't either. You should be enjoying the holiday. So you can also take advantage of our daily virtual office hours. They are offered every day from 11 to noon. Typically, I am the person that hosts those sessions. They're held via WebEx. If I'm unavailable or if it's a really specific thing that needs support and we have a subject matter expert who is better suited for it, that person will take it. Otherwise, you will be speaking with me. And the virtual office hours do require an appointment. So make sure you come to our website, click on this button, and then you'll be able to sign up for an available session. So you can see there's no availability this week. The time has already passed, but there are sessions available next week. And you can also email our team at onlinestrategy@gw.edu if it's something that you cannot get addressed at office hours, and a member of our team will pick that email up and we'll be happy to assist you that way. But that is all that I have for you guys today. Again, I thank you for hanging in there with me, and I will get this recording over to you guys as soon as it's available and cleaned up, and enjoy the rest of your day.